Hello and welcome to Daily Prelims Practice. Here we are going to take up the MCQs based on today's newspaper of The Hindu and Indian Express, which are important from UPSC Prelims exam perspective. The topics for today's discussion are listed on your screen. So let us start the discussion. The first question of today's discussion is based on this news which has appeared on page number 7 in The Hindu. It basically talks about the electoral bonds which were brought by central government in 2018 for funding the political parties during elections. The context of this news, the petitions filed in Supreme Court challenging the electoral bond scheme of 2018. Now elections is an important area under the polity section of our UPSC Prelims exam, so we must be aware about the key aspects associated with electoral bonds. In the year 2017, UPSC has asked this particular question and it says, for election to the Lok Sabha, a nomination paper can be filed by, and you need to identify the correct answer from the given 4 options. You can pause this video and try a hand on this. The practice question which we have designed for today's discussion says that with reference to electoral bonds, consider the following statements. In this question, you need to identify which of the following statements is or are correct. The first statement says, these bonds can be purchased from any bank or post office in India. It is an incorrect statement as it is only through the State Bank of India one can purchase the electoral bonds to fund the political parties. So, this statement becomes incorrect. The second statement says it can be used for making donations only to the political parties registered under RPA Act 1951. Now this statement is correct as the electoral bond is a bearer instrument to be used for funding eligible political parties, and the eligible political party is the one which is registered under the section 29A of RPA Act 1951, and there is one more condition attached to it. That particular political party must have secured more than 1% of the votes polled in the last general election of the Lok Sabha or Legislative Assembly. So this statement is correct. The third statement says the payment for issuance of electoral bonds can be accepted in both Indian rupees and foreign currency. Now this statement is incorrect because the payment for electoral bonds is accepted only in Indian rupees and not in any other currency. So this statement becomes incorrect. And the answer to this question becomes A, which is 2 only. And the answer to the previous year question is C, as the nomination papers can be filed by any citizen of India whose name must have appeared in the electoral roll of a constituency. So the correct answer to this question is C. Moving on to the next question which has appeared on page number 15 in Indian Express. It talks about the recent report by IMF which is named as World Economic Outlook, and it says India will be the fastest growing major economy of the world in the year 2023. So it has dissipated the fears of recession which are prevailing in the countries across the world. So it is a major relief for India. And IMF is an important international organization as it is a financial agency of United Nations and it provides for the global monetary cooperation. And UPSC has previously asked many questions on world organizations and the reports released by them. As you can see in the year 2015, UPSC has asked about global economic prospects and you need to identify which of the following organization releases this report. And on the similar lines, we have designed one practice MCQ which says which of the following reports are published by International Monetary Fund. In this question, you are being given 4 options and you need to identify which of them are being released by IMF. As we have discussed in the description that in the World Economic Outlook report, IMF has said that India will be the fastest growing economy, so this option is correct. The second option says Global Financial Stability Report. It is also released by IMF and it is one of the flagship report which is released by IMF twice a year. The third option says World Development Report. Many of you must be aware that it is a report released by World Bank and not by IMF. So this option becomes incorrect. The fourth option says Fiscal Monitor. It is also a report which is released by IMF. So this option is also correct. Hence, the answer to this question becomes C, which is 1, 2 and 4. You can also solve this question by elimination technique. If you are aware that World Development Report is released by World Bank, you can eliminate option B and option D. In this way, you come close to the answer. And if you have any piece of information regarding Fiscal Monitor, you will reach the correct answer, which is C. And the answer to the previous question is D, as it is the World Bank which releases the Global Economic Prospects Report. Try to remember this particular information as it can be asked in UPSC Prelims exam 2023. Now moving on to the next question, which is based on this particular news, which has appeared on page number 4 in The Hindu. It talks about the PM Cares Fund, which government has started during the COVID pandemic to provide relief to the people of the country. And in a recent move by the Prime Minister's office, it has told Delhi High Court that PM CARES Fund is administered like the PM National Relief Fund. And it further says it is not a government fund, as donations to it does not go to Consolidated Fund of India. The context of this news is not important from our UPSC Prelims exam perspective, but the funds which are created by government or by the constitution like Consolidated Fund of India, Contingency Fund of India and Public Account of India are important and recurring theme in the UPSC Prelims exam. So we must be aware about the key facts associated with PM CARES Fund. This is the thought process behind this particular theme which we have picked up for framing the practice MCQ. And you can see in the year 2017, UPSC has asked about National Investment and Infrastructure Fund. In this question, you are being given two statements and you need to identify which of the following is or are correct. There are high chances that many of you are not aware about this particular fund, but you can pause this video and use your common sense to solve this particular question. And on the similar lines, we have designed one practice MCQ on PM CARES Fund, and it says, with reference to PM CARES Fund, consider the following statements. In this question, you need to identify which of the following statements are correct. Now, whenever you solve the MCQs, be very careful whether it is asking for the correct or incorrect options. The first statement says it has been registered as a public charitable trust under the Registration Act 1908. As PM CARES Fund has been registered as a public charitable trust, keeping in mind the kind of emergency or distress situation which was posed by COVID pandemic and to provide relief to the affected population of the country. So this statement becomes correct. The second statement says Prime Minister is the ex officio chairman of the fund. It is again a correct statement, as the Prime Minister is the ex officio chairman of the fund and the Minister of Defence, Home Affairs, Finance are the ex officio trustees of the fund. So it is a correct statement. The third and the last statement says donations to PM CARES Fund will also qualify to be counted as corporate social responsibility expenditure under the Companies Act 2013. It is also a correct statement, as whatever donations the companies are making to the PM CARES Fund will be qualified as their CSR activity under the Companies Act 2013. So in this question, all the statements are correct and the answer to this question becomes D, which is 1, 2 and 3. And the answer to the previous year question is also D. Both the statements are incorrect. Now most of you have identified that second statement might be incorrect because the amount which is given is too high. So there are less chances that such a huge fund has been made by the government. And the first statement was a tricky one, but it is not an organ of Niti Aayog. Try to remember these facts as they can be asked as one of the statement by UPSC in the upcoming prelims exam. Now moving on to the next question, which is based on this particular news item which has appeared on page number 7 in Indian Express. It basically talks about the Comptroller and Auditor General of India who has taken over the chairmanship of G20 audit institutions. Now CAG is an important constitutional body in the Indian political system which plays a major role in the auditing exercise. Now you should analyze such news from the UPSC Prelims exam perspective and try to cover the static portion which is directly associated with such news. And constitutional bodies are important for our prelims exam, and the UPSC in previous years asked many questions on such bodies and their powers. As you can see, in the year 2017, UPSC has asked about Election Commission of India. In this question, you have to identify out of these three statements, which of the statements is or are correct. Now, before moving on to the practice MCQ, I will tell you that this is an easy question and by applying your common sense, you can reach the correct answer in few seconds. Just try your hand on this. Now the practice MCQ says, with respect to Comptroller and Auditor General of India, consider the following statements. The first statement says, he can be removed by President on the same grounds and in the same manner as Judge of Supreme Court. It is a correct statement. The CAG can be removed by President on the basis of resolution passed to that effect by the both houses of Parliament with special majority. You should remember this particular fact that special majority is required for the removal of CAG from his office. And there are two grounds on which he can be removed. One is proved misbehavior and the second one is incapacity. So this statement is correct. The second statement says he audits all transactions of central and state governments related to debt, advances, suspense accounts and remittance business. It is again a correct statement. It is the responsibility of CAG to audit all the transactions of central and state governments. And apart from this, he also audit the receipts of stock accounts with the approval of President. The third statement says he submits his audit papers relating to accounts of center and state to Parliament. Now it is a tricky statement, and the common sense says why the audit reports of state governments will be submitted to Parliament. It is an incorrect statement, as the audit reports of center are submitted to President, and for the state governments it is submitted to Governor. So it is an incorrect statement. The answer to this question is B, as only 1 and 2 are correct. Now the answer to the previous year question is D, which is 3 only, because Election Commission of India is a 3-member body and not a 5-member body. So the first statement is incorrect. The second statement says Union Ministry of Home Affairs decides the election schedule for the conduct of both general elections and by-elections. It is again an incorrect statement. The Home Ministry does not have any role in deciding the schedule of elections. Hence, by eliminating 2, you will reach the correct answer. You can use these kind of logics while attempting the prelims MCQs. Moving on to the next question, which is based on this news, which has appeared on page number 16 in Indian Express. It basically talks about the dispute between Azerbaijan and Armenia over the Nagorno-Karabakh region. And recently, Azerbaijan has appealed to the International Court of Justice to issue orders to Armenia to stop laying the landmines on the Azerbaijan territory. As International Court of Justice is an important body in resolving the disputes between the states. So, this area becomes important for our discussion. And UPSC has a habit of asking 1 or 2 international organization or body in the prelims exam to test the knowledge of candidates with respect to this particular area. As you can see, in the year 2015, UPSC has asked about Amnesty International, and you need to identify which of the following is the correct description of this particular organization. The practice MCQ which we have designed for International Court of Justice says that consider the following statements. The first statement says the International Court of Justice is one of the specialized agencies of United Nations. It is an incorrect statement, as ICJ was established in 1945 and it is the principal judicial organ of United Nations, which is situated at Peace Palace in Hague, which is in Netherlands, and it is not a specialized agency of United Nations. The second statement says the ICJ can only deal with the dispute when the states concerned have recognized its jurisdiction. It is a correct statement, as according to the international law, ICJ resolves the legal problems that governments refers to it for the resolution, and it only accepts the applications from and hearings from the states. The third statement says ICJ can use its jurisdiction to look into a war crime. It is an incorrect statement, as ICJ lacks the authority to try anybody charged with war crimes or crimes against humanity, because it is not a criminal court, and it is the International Criminal Court which can use its jurisdiction to look into war crime if a crime is committed by one of its member countries. So this statement becomes incorrect, and the answer to this question becomes C, as only second statement is correct. And the answer to the previous year question is B, because Amnesty International is a global human rights movement. The last question of today's discussion is based on this news, which has appeared on the front page of The Hindu, and it talks about the growth of GDP in India will be 6.5% in the year 2023 to 24, and it is an estimate by the Economic Survey which government has released recently. Now, Economic Survey of Union Government is an important document which highlights the important aspects of Indian economy regarding its growth rate, inflation, investment rates, saving rates, and many more. So we must have a basic idea about the Economic Survey of Union Government. In this regard, we have framed one practice MCQ on Economic Survey of India, and it says, consider the following statements regarding Economic Survey of India. The first statement says, it is prepared by Economic Division of Department of Economic Affairs. It is a correct statement, as this document is prepared by Economic Division of Department of Economic Affairs under the guidance of Chief Economic Advisor. So, it is a correct statement. The second statement says, it is presented independently from the budget since the inception. Now, this statement is incorrect, as the first economic survey was presented in 1950 and until 1964, it was presented along with the budget. So, this statement becomes incorrect. The third statement says, the recommendations made under the survey are non-binding, as it is a very generic statement, and we all know as Economic Survey highlights the performance of Indian economy in the preceding year, and the recommendations are not binding. ending. So this statement is correct. And the answer to this question becomes C, which is 1 and 3 only. You must also be aware that economic survey is a comprehensive analysis of the economy, and its observations and details provide an official framework for analyzing the Indian economy and framing the policies which will be beneficial for the economy and people at large. Try to remember this particular information. So that's all for today's discussion. Thank you for watching the daily prelims practice of Raus IAS Study Circle. Stay tuned for upcoming sessions which will enhance your prelims exam preparation.